Hello, I'm Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life, and I also co founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. Well, welcome to our program. And if you were able to tune in earlier this week, you know we were discussing with my good friend Gerald Gotzi a little bit about the chemical abortion. And you're going to hear a lot about that today and a whole bunch of other things about what you can be doing to get more involved in the pro life movement. Well, joining me today is a very, very good friend of mine and Father Pavone's. We have known him for many years, working side by side in the pro life movement. And his name is Brad Mattes, and he currently is heading up Life Issues Institute. But he also worked very closely assisting Dr. Jack Wilkie and his wife Barbara in founding Life Issues Institute. And Dr. Wilkie is a pioneer in the pro-life movement, being involved from the very, very, very beginning. And I know I owe a lot of the knowledge I have to this day to the work of Dr. Wilkie. In fact, Dr. Wilkie was a pioneer in showing people what abortion looked like all the way back in the 70s and 80s, before ultrasound, all that. He had pictures and he would take them around and show people, this is what abortion's doing to a baby. And Dr. Wilkie, he was a very successful OBGYN, delivered lots and lots of babies, but at a certain point, he gave it all up to be bringing an end to abortion. So now joining me is the next in line there. Dr. Wilkie turned over the reins to my dear friend, Brad Mattes. So Brad, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Janet. It's fun to be with you.
Well, and I had to just say a few words about our dear friend, Dr. Wilkie, of course, who's gone home to be with the Lord, him and Barbara. But as you know, Brad, so many of us in the movement, really, we owe so much to the Wilkies, don't we?
Oh, yes, we stand on their shoulders, clearly. Nobody has done more to further the cause for unborn babies and their mothers than Jack and Barbara Wilkie. And I count it an honor to be closely working with them side by side for 24 years before Jack passed away.
Yeah, it really was amazing. And of course, your background is you've been involved in the pro-life movement yourself, even before with the Wilkies, right? You were with National Right to Life, you told me, both in Montana, California, and then you finally ended up in Ohio, correct?
True. Yes, I've been in the movement for, I guess, around 44 years, maybe.
Right.
First 11 years was as a volunteer, and then in 1986, I began full-time work in pro-life, and that's when Jack was president of National Right to Life and hired me to work as one of the PAC people. And during those election cycles, as you know, they can get very, very busy. And my territory was the Western 13 states. So I remember still living in Montana, having a breakfast meeting in Sacramento, a lunch meeting in San Diego, and a dinner meeting in Texas, all meeting with candidates to arrange support, grassroots support for pro-life candidates. It was a very busy time.
Wow. So tell everyone now about the work of Life Issues Institute. How can you describe it?
Sure. Life Issues Institute is the educational arm, I guess you could say, of the pro-life movement. Our sole purpose and focus is to provide educational tools for the pro-life movement and the public at large. One of the key programs that we have is I do a daily radio commentary on about 1,254 stations, radio stations at last count, and we have a daily audience of 3.6 million. I do half-hour annual radio programs, usually around January 22nd. We had 834 stations pick up that time and give free airtime for a half hour, and that is really incredible. It speaks to the heart of the radio stations. For 8 seasons, I was executive producer and host of a television program called Facing Life Head On. And we were able to garner 3 regional Emmy Awards for pro-life programming, which was certainly a first. And our goal with that program, and really most of what we do, is to mainstream pro-life thinking, pro-life messaging, and touching the hearts and minds of those who are persuadable on abortion, but really haven't taken a firm position either way.
And then, of course, currently, Life Issues Institute has come under the umbrella of the Susan B. Anthony list. Maybe explain that a little bit.
Sure. I had admired Marjorie Dannenfelser's work at SBA for a long time, and she had admired mine. And I had her on a couple TV programs, so she saw our work up close. And we just thought together we could be more effective. We bring to the table a grassroots pro-life educational arm that they did not have, and we work very closely with them to educate Americans on legislation that is before Congress or state specifics. We can alert them when action needs to be taken as far as grassroots efforts to support or help situations as they evolve and develop.
And of course, as Brad, you and I know, we attend a lot of strategy meetings with other leaders, and we know full well that currently Planned Parenthoods and other abortion clinics are moving away from first trimester surgical abortion into the chemical abortion, and for multiple reasons. Number one, they're finding harder and harder to find doctors willing to do abortions for staffing issues. Number two is, well, the chemical abortion is so much easier. They almost make the same amount of money on the chemical abortion as they do surgical, and yet they give that lady that first pill, and now she goes with her little brown bag, and now it's all on her to deal with it and go home. And so we know that's the trend right now, isn't it?
Oh, yes. The overhead is cut drastically back for the abortion industry. And this is where they have pivoted to give you an idea of just how seriously they take chemical abortion, is that only 44% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities still even offer surgical abortion. They are pivoting eventually to exclusive abortion by chemical deadly drugs for the babies. And it's very, very difficult and traumatic for women to undergo that procedure.
Well, of course, we know, Brad, from the Silent No More Awareness campaign and through Rachel's Vineyard. First of all, with Rachel's Vineyard, we're finding the women who have the chemical abortion coming for healing sooner than the women from surgical. So we have some women coming within the same year of their chemical abortion for healing because they're so traumatized. And that's because they become the abortionist because they take that second pill, which actually expels the baby. And of course, their bathroom and bedroom become the abortion clinic. So it's very triggering, very traumatic for them. And they see the remains of their baby. So it's very, very traumatic for them. And I know we have some good friends that are helping women who take that first pill and stop and say, I regret it. And the abortion clinic tells them, oh, it's too late. You got to take that second pill. But we know about the abortion pill rescue, don't we?
Oh, yes, we absolutely do. And Jarrell Godsey, who you had on earlier, is a central figure behind that. And we are a firm believer in promoting that in any way we can, because when women change their mind after they take the first pill, there is a protocol by which they can save a significant number of babies. It's very safe, no side effects. The prostaglandin that they use has been around for decades with no side effects. It's really put the choice in so-called pro-choice to give these women an avenue when they do change their mind.
That's right. And so if people want to learn more about that, you can go to abortionrescue.com, abortionpillreversal.com. Each one of those sites, there's people standing on by with a phone number you can call. You can find out where's the nearest doctor to you that can take you on as a patient and give you the progesterone, which is the key to turn everything around about face. And actually, when you think about it, women who are in high-risk pregnancies of having multiple miscarriages, that's exactly what they give them in the first trimester to help them hold the pregnancy. So it's really a very practical approach to doing that. But then we want to look at on the state level, as you know, because of the current administration, we're not going to make much progress for pro-life laws on the federal level, but there's good news coming out of the states. Could you address that for us?
Oh, yes, there is very good news. I'm glad you asked that question, Janet, because I get excited every time I get to talk about this. The Guttmacher Institute, which is very pro-abortion, they were originally founded to be the research arm of Planned Parenthood. They make no secret about their extreme pro-abortion status. Recently, they reported that nearly 400 pieces of pro-life legislation had been introduced during the first 2 months of 2021, 834 to be exact. And that is sending a chill up the spine of these pro-abortion advocates. And it well should, Janet, because this is a nation on the move. This is the grassroots movement at their best, standing up for life, standing up for the majority of Americans who don't support abortion on demand throughout pregnancy. So we're seeing quite a bit of laws being passed, and one in particular is one that I'm very excited about.
Well, tell us about that law, Brad.
Okay. It's a law that goes to the heart of the abortion industry. It strikes at the very heart of what they're doing. They have invested mega resources and efforts into pivoting to chemical abortion. Now, the first time this piece of legislation was passed was very recently in my home state of Montana, God's country, as I like to refer to it. And it's a model legislation that we think will be repeated in various other states. And what it does is it has huge number of safeguards for women. It's very pro-woman legislation. And one of the things that the pro-aborts want to do, of course, is to make chemical abortion more readily available by mail or telemedicine, not even seeing a doctor. And we have to remember that chemical abortion is 4 times more dangerous than surgical abortion, and they want to do away with the medical aspects, the medical professionalism entirely. So what this legislation does is it requires that the chemical abortion pill be given in person. And there's a lot of reasons for that, because they can rule out an ectopic pregnancy. Normally that's in the fallopian tube somewhere outside the uterus, and that can be life-threatening. So it's very important that they diagnose that if that's the case, because the abortion pill won't affect that. They need to establish the blood type so they can administer RhoGAM if she's Rh negative. My wife was Rh negative, and in order for our first and 3 other sons to live, she needed that critical injection. It determines the gestational age of the baby. It includes a follow-up visit to monitor the completion of the abortion and the patient's conditions, because one of the most frequent side effects of this is that the abortion is not completed, and that can turn septic very quickly and put a woman in a life-endangering situation. The law also protects children. It prevents the abortion industry from targeting children. They cannot distribute this pill on any school campus or within any school building. So that's a great thing to see that children are protected. There's a very large section dedicated to informed consent, and all of this has to be provided 24 hours before the onset of the abortion. And some of this is well, it's like it was written by pro-lifers, and it was. It's just great, exciting legislation. They have to provide information to the woman about the reversal process that we just spoke about, to the extent of giving the website and 24-hour hotline number for this reversal network. She has to be informed that she has that right to reverse it if she has a change of heart. She needs to be warned that she will likely see the body of her dead baby. The women that I have interviewed through the years have expressed great tragic remorse when they were told it was not a baby, and then they held that child in their hands. And sadly, many of them didn't know what to do, and they flushed their child down the toilet. Those are very, very hard memories to live with. We hope to change that with this legislation. She's given the opportunity to ask questions. Many women have said they were just rammed through to get their money, and that was about it. She is also informed that she has the right to sue her abortionist if she feels she was coerced or misled regarding the chemical abortion. And not only that, but she can be directed to state assets. So many women, Janet, have told us over and over and over again that they were lied to about chemical abortion, about its impact on them, that it wouldn't be painful, that the bleeding would just be a heavy period, there'd be some light cramping. And women that I've spoken to said that it was worse than giving birth, and they had done both, so they should know. There's a reason we're very concerned about reporting restrictions. And so this legislation has some information and power behind that. During the first 3 months, the United Kingdom and England allowed this mail order chemical abortion thing during the pandemic. And for the first 3 months, only one complication was reported. They knew that though that was a lie, because in the previous 5 months, when this was given under medical supervision in a hospital, they had a complication rate of 17 times what they reported during the mail order. So we know that women are going to be kicked to the curb, and the main concern will be making that money and not the health of the women. So they will get a lot of information, the name of the abortionist, the number of previous pregnancies, live births, or abortionists, the drugs, specific information on when they were given and what drugs were given, list any pre-existing medical conditions that might complicate the woman's health. And then, of course, they must give a detailed report of the complications. And now it's important to know that the name of the woman or any identifying information will be withheld. Her privacy is paramount, and she is not the recipient of any penalty of this law. But there are penalties, and this is another fun part of this. There are criminal penalties of those who purposely violate any aspect of this bill. They would be guilty, if convicted, guilty of a felony, and they will be fined up to $50,000 and be imprisoned for not more than 20 years or both. So there's a lot of teeth in this bill. And there are civil remedies and professional sanctions also, which means that failure to comply with the requirements allows for civil malpractice action for both actual and punitive damages, and the suspension or revocation of the abortionist's medical license. And in the event of a woman dying, the family can sue for wrongful death. Now, it's very important to know that there are no penalties for the woman who has the abortion. We see her and view her as a victim in this, as has been done throughout the history of our nation with pro-life laws, and she is also protected with this law. But
so Brad, this law now, it was signed by the governor yet, or was just passed in the legislature? Where are we with this law?
Signed by the governor. So if
and
there
when
are
was that
court
signed? Just, recently?
Yes. Just so it's probably a little early yet to have it challenged in court, but Planned Parenthood challenges any pro-life legislation because they want literally unrestricted abortion on demand. So it'll be interesting what they do with this part, but any part that is ruled unconstitutional, the rest stands.
Oh, well, that's good. So in other words, if they want to challenge the whole law, the court is going to have to look at the law and say, all right, this is constitutional, this is this, that can stay, just this one sentence here might have to come out. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, there's what they call severability. So if part of the law is ruled unconstitutional, the rest stands and can be upheld. And it is so comprehensive that I think that so many women and their babies will be protected from this death drug.
Yeah. I mean, this is really great news. And I know our good friends at Americans United for Life, right? They were very instrumental in drafting this bill, correct? And I think they're going to try now approaching other states where they know that they have a very positive state legislature in their state Senate and House. I mean, that's the idea here, right? We start with the most pro-life states where we have a chance. And these are the kind of laws that, and what I feel, Brad, I think is the most important is, first of all, that this law has teeth. Because as you know, back when the partial birth abortion bill ban was enacted by Bush, it didn't have teeth. And that's why we still know those babies are being born alive and left. And just all these other bills, I feel, that were passed on the federal level did not have enough teeth in them. And I just love the fact that you said this has all this extra teeth of enforcement, and punishment is built into the law, because that's the only thing that's going to stop, the abortion industry. Because as Father Frank always says, you can't practice vice virtuously, and they will go to any end to kind of do an end run around any law to keep doing what they're doing, killing babies, hurting women. So finally, we have a law that has teeth, which I think is amazing. I just love it. And so, brothers and sisters, I think what we're saying here is this is exciting news, and you should be contacting, especially if you're in a good pro-life state where you know you've got the majority in your House and Senate, in your local government. This is a bill you should bring up. Say, hey, Montana passed this great pro-life bill. What about us doing it in our state? And if you start talking to your representatives, I think on the local level, meanwhile, we'll know our friends at American United for Life. They'll be speaking to them. But people, they need to hear from the grassroots, as you know, Brad, right? I mean, you were the National Right to Life for years, and you know, nothing speaks more to politicians than when they hear from people who are their people in their hometowns, right?
You're right. And I was speaking at a church a couple weeks ago. And here in Florida, we have a beautiful, wonderful state, but we are leading in late-term abortions in the southeastern part of the country. And when I talked about this bill, I talked to one person later afterward who said, I'd like a copy of that because I want to go give it to my state representative and tell them that we want this law. So I emailed her that the next day, put that in her hands, and the most effective way that that we have with legislators is speak to our own representation, people that work for us, people that they are accountable to for how they conduct themselves in the capitals.
Right. Well, also too, Brett, we have a few minutes left. I know you're also, like me, very involved in healing after abortion, but in particular, you've had a big heart for also bringing to light the hurt of the men. Would you like to speak to that for a moment?
Sure. And it ties into this legislation we've been talking about, Janet, because you've explained some of what has been impacted with women through chemical abortion. What we're finding, and I counsel fathers who've lost children to abortion, and I was a founding member of the Men in Abortion Network. And what we found is when we're counseling men, when it involves a chemical abortion, is we have to deal with the anger issue. We deal with that all the time, but it's more intense. And it's usually vented toward the partner who had the abortion because she is both the abortionist and the victim. And the men see her as the abortionist because they can't direct that anger toward anyone else. She took the pills and had the abortion at her home or their home. And sometimes they're angry with her bringing that into their family and their household. And it's a memory that they cannot erase. So we reach out to men and help them. It's amazing, Janet, the changes that I've seen in guys when we take them through the counseling process, and we give all the credit to the Holy Spirit, of course, for that. But if there's anybody watching this program who has an abortion in their past, I want to tell you, you're not alone. There's hope and there's healing for you. And if you contact us through our website at lifeissues.org, lifeissues.org, we can get you a free peer-to-peer counselor wherever you are. And you can get a wealth of information at menandabortion.net. Menandabortion.net. That's a website exclusively for grieving fathers and those who want to help them. So it's important. This is too big to do on your own. You need some help, and we can get that help to you.
That's right. And, very often, we know this also because of Silent No More and Rachel's Vineyard. The men, there's all kinds of symptoms, just like the women who are suffering from abortion. There's a whole list, but the list is pretty similar for the men. Sometimes they abuse drugs and alcohol to numb the pain they feel, because they didn't stand up for their baby. Sometimes they become workaholics or gamblers. They get into addictive behaviors like that. And the anger issue, like you said, Brad, is huge. And I can just imagine, like I said before, the woman is the abortionist. Her home becomes the abortion clinic. And so, like you said, they don't have anyone to get angry with but the woman that they got pregnant with. That's it. So it is a much more intense thing that's going on. So again, we want to address anyone out there that is hurting. You can go to Brad's website, lifeissuesinstitute.org. And also, too, there's another site you can go to, abortionforgiveness.com, and just put in your zip code, and you'll see where the nearest Rachel's Vineyard and other healing ministries are located also. We've all got to spread the word that there's no such thing as, an unforgivable sin here. The mercy and forgiveness are here. And I think the abortion industry thrives on the silence that people feel. They feel shame or no one understands their pain. And what we're here to say is we understand and we're here for you. So thank you, Brad, for joining me. This was a great program, lots of information. And I hope, brothers and sisters, you get involved today in doing something to bring an end to abortion. Because remember, there are some lives only you can save and some abortions only you can stop. So please get involved today. Well, thank you, too, for joining us on Just Ask Janet. Until next time, God bless.